Hello everyone, welcome to Growth Version, a channel that shares essential lessons drawn from good books throughout your life journey. Have you ever wondered about the meaning of the whole thing? Your life is not. You are born, grow up, and start going through stressful years of studying to pass different exams to find a stable job, get married, have children, and take care of your family, and then you grow old quietly, finally leaving this life. Is that all that life can bring? Is the great journey of the human soul only wrapped up in roles and such repetitive responsibility? Is there something deeper than a meaning that we miss in the endless whirl of this daily life? The great thinker, Krishnamurti, would say to you that it is just a part of life, just existence. Life is not a stereotype of the predetermined model of social order. Life must understand the whole of life, but it requires you, as a human being, to discover for yourself what is true. Today, through the book, Some Things to Ponder, by Krishnamurti, we will together discover the true meaning of life through the author's simple, clear, yet insightful instructions for those who have had enough in their lives and those who are still struggling every day with a difficult life. The hard-working people out there, and especially the young generation who are entering the bustling life full of promise ahead, really need to explore this book as well as other famous books by the great thinker, Krishnamurti, so that you can soon understand and discover the true meaning of this life, understand yourself, know what you like to do, how to live and love, to experience a deeply valuable life in true freedom. Krishnamurti is a famous Indian philosopher who experienced a difficult childhood and countless hardships that awakened his strong inner self to escape the ideology of the whole society, to become a philosopher independent of any ideology or politics of that time. He devoted himself to independent speaking work all over the world. To make his presentations, in his 90s, he spoke at the United Nations on the subject of peace and awareness and was awarded the United Nations Peace Medal in 1984. His famous books, his notes, and compilations by associates and those close to him as the book, What Are You Doing With Your Life, Education and the Meaning of Life, as We Are the First and Last Freedom, Van. Now, let's go to the content of today's sharing. After all, how should we live? The goal of education must be to understand ourselves. First of all, let's talk about the first process of each person, that is learning. We go to school to learn different subjects, prepare for different skills. The purpose ultimately is to find a place when we grow up, a stable career. When entering this breeding career, most of us finish our studies there. The few remaining people continue to cultivate knowledge, develop thinking skills. But thinking about it, all this learning is just a means to get where you want to go, to become who you want to be, that is a better job, a more leisurely future, a more materially fulfilling life, known by many people and praised, love, and so on. Is there anything else? After all, is the goal of education just that purpose? Sar Pandit, the first Prime Minister of India, once said that the goal of education is not to teach how to make a living or provide tools to achieve wealth, but it must be the path that leads the human soul to reach the truth and practice the divine. The author also believes that if you are educated only to get a better job, more power, more domination over others, life will become superficial and extremely empty, because you have lost all meaning of life. If education only gives you a career, you only understand a small corner of life, and all your life you just live according to the same pattern like so many other people, not much different from a machine that gradually fades away over time. Because everything education encourages you to achieve is driven by fear of human greed, in all forms of ambition, from a good job, high salary, big house, big car, to a life partner as you wish, obedient children, good health, all are born from worries and fears. Do you have them? As you get older, your fears will grow larger. You fear all kinds of things, fear of losing your job, fear of scandal, fear of heartbreak, betrayal, fear of others, fear of hunger, fear of losing loved ones, fear of death. And you are even afraid of living. Fear will fuel greed. Greed will try to do something to ease the fear of any suffering. Happiness and misery are intertwined throughout our lives. We are taught by teachers to pass exams with high scores. We are encouraged by parents to seek stability in life, finance, social status, and a smooth sailing life. But in the end, no one tells us about how life should be lived meaningfully, how to overcome fear of contradiction, and the pain encountered on the road of life because teachers, parents, and society have been held back by inherent prejudices in the standard values of success and happiness that have been passed down through generations without ever doubting or questioning them. So most of us simply exist, do everything according to the pattern to be able to drag through life. The author wrote like this: instead of awakening the comprehensive intelligence in each person, we should re-educate, encouraging a person to conform to a certain pattern and thereby hinder their understanding of themselves. Understanding life is understanding oneself, that is both the starting point and the end point of education. Great divide Aristotle, then it is said that, knowing thyself is the beginning of all knowledge. The ignorant man is not the uneducated man, but the man who does not know himself. Knowledge comes only to those who know. Know the whole psychological process of oneself. If one cannot understand their own fear and greed, then no matter how profound their knowledge is or how great and circuitous their technology is, no matter how luxurious their life is, they will never be able to resolve the pressures and conflicts within themselves. Life will still be a long road of suffering. The most important thing is to have an education, awaken the ability to self-awareness, not to satisfy the self-affirmation with knowledge, level, position, and all possessions. When you can understand yourself, understand the greedy and full nature, fear clinging to the safe living formulas, wishing for stability, longing for perfection that family and society have instilled in you, you have taken the first steps in the freedom to discover yourself and understand. The operation of your own ego is an extremely important and extremely valuable beginning. Because at this time, no matter whether life ahead showers you with suffering, unhappiness, or the joy of love, then you will always be willing to experience everything. And more, if you can stop to ask yourself how you really want to live, what brings peace and happiness. Only by daring to ask questions and stepping out of the familiar rut, can you find a way to live truly free and fulfilled, not just existing to meet other people's expectations or following the eternal cycle of life. Society should break the rigid rules, imposed prejudices, and all kinds of thinking about ideal life that are binding day and night. Remember that life is always an extraordinary mystery. It is not in a book, pretends not to have in it the experiences of other people's views, but it forces you to discover for yourself. Discovery begins with understanding your own petty, narrow-minded, selfish, and petty nature. And in that understanding, you can get out of society. All knowledge from teachers, family, and books is limited. Only learning through self-understanding is limitless. It will teach you how to listen and observe yourself, and then the people around you, the way you talk and treat the people around you, the way you talk and treat everyone, no matter who they are, the way you look at the sky, clouds, trees, grass, animals come alive, wonder, and cherish, that is life. So, no matter who you are, to truly live, you need to turn inside yourself. That is where you need to understand the whole world that you want to explore. It is always within you, as the famous spiritual master once wrote, that the inner self is where life really happens. If you cannot find peace within, you will not find it anywhere else. But to be able to truly be free, to understand yourself, to live as yourself, to experience life to the fullest, you probably need to understand where true freedom comes from. According to the author, true freedom is not that you are free to do what you want, to go where you want to go, think what you want to think. You can live independently like that, but freedom is not necessarily you to have. True freedom is to be unbound within the soul, regardless of the ups and downs of life, regardless of how the external circumstances change. Freedom always lies in the act of understanding oneself. What is the body doing every minute and every second when we are no longer bound by the past, when the mind is not conditioned by any pattern, and when we live completely consciously and independently of anything, any form of control? So, how to give yourself the freedom we need to have? The following. First, steadfastly nurture dissatisfaction within yourself. Sounds contradictory and confusing, right? Because we have always given dissatisfaction a negative connotation, a state that should not exist and should not be nurtured, because once you are dissatisfied with someone or something, it means your life is in trouble, is unstable, is heading towards chaos, and we just want to have security. Stop traditional family work, focusing on material things. Money, status, fame, power, may have once made you discontent in your 20s when you are full of vitality. But the older you get, the more the constraints of life pull you back into this endless cycle. You have a family to take care of, children and old parents to support. There are demands at work that must be considered, there are views from neighbors, and the concepts of this society that always close you off. You need safety above all. It's true that the more mature we become, the more we pretend, the more we will blur your own dissatisfaction. Even when you hide the fame and power you have, the less you want to resist, because you are always afraid of losing. So, we continue to be content and then distract ourselves, get rid of the remaining dissatisfaction by forms of entertainment, drinking, playing games, loving, traveling, worshipping, performing rituals, worshipping anything that makes a name. Lie down the fire of dissatisfaction within yourself. But the author says that dissatisfaction is the source of self-freedom and creative, and that is also the way for you to discover the truth of life, but you try not to misunderstand and think that dissatisfaction is synonymous with resentment accompanied by depression and reaction. Something to someone. The purpose of this dissatisfaction is to desire a better situation, better position, more favorable job, more beautiful, more wealthy. This dissatisfaction is motivated by greed, so it is very superficial. And the dissatisfaction that the author encourages each person to nurture to the end is the non-compromise, non-acceptance of pre-established patterns with old values and ideological systems imposed on people who always question and desire to find the truth, the true nature, the meaning of existence. Dissatisfaction here must come with joy. Naturally, this dissatisfaction will lead you to freedom and creativity, to peace and harmony. Creative here is not about great and sublime inventions, but on the contrary, it is very ordinary but full of meaning. When you are willing to be kind to a stranger, when you comfort or help someone, an animal gets hurt, when you happily plant a tree, when you casually pick up a rock blocking the road because you hope strangers passing by won't trip over it, when you just want to help someone in secret, quietly, it all starts small when you nurture discontent in joy and love. If you continue to nurture this small flame, it will eventually build new things for life when it takes you to a creative sky. In short, to nurture dissatisfaction properly with joy and love, we need to approach dissatisfaction with a non-judgmental mindset and not let it turn into negativity, resentment, or disappointment, but with love and understanding, turn it into a driving force for creative learning and change that helps you find new possibilities and a freer way of living. Then the second thing you need to do to have true freedom is to cultivate a rich inner self. Do you know why people like to be loved and admired, or in other words, they crave fame? You may say that I don't need to be famous, but within the framework of a smaller community, from family, friends, village, neighbors, relatives, company, you may still want to be recognized, valued, praised. This is also the state of desire, fame. If not, when someone puts you down, insults you, misunderstands you, you will not feel angry and resentful. After all, even if you own a big house, a beautiful car, are rich and enjoy life, deep in your heart you will not strongly motivated by a sense of pride, wanting to prove yourself, wanting people to know. What is the reason you want fame? The reason is because you are so poor inside, so needy that you want to have something on the outside to compensate for the endless breadth in the heart. a rich and interesting inner life, then whether or not fame is no longer a problem, but just a natural consequence of a person living a life of their own, complete, true, and meaningful. So where do we start to nurture our inner self? Let's start with letting go, no longer defending or resisting, but letting go. Letting go here is not a state of surrender, but rather to give up deep-seated needs to control, to assert oneself, or to gain approval from others, no longer trying to create a false image of oneself to be accepted or rewarded, not being obsessed, drawn towards the more. It is the state of being content, living simply, not running after the standards of society, not obsessing about the past nor worrying about the future. Just when you can let go, you are truly free. The more you let go, the more your heart is filled with love and compassion for everyone, everything, and every moment in life. Third, freedom also comes from jingle and the end. Enjoy the beauty of solitude. People today prefer to be alone more, but are they really alone? Modern technology devices surround them with overwhelming entertainment that makes them think they are willing being alone but actually being caught up in the automated communication of a developed civilization. Your life will become boring and even frustrating. If there is no electricity or internet for a few days, and without connections on the internet, then you start to seek out relatives, friends, neighbors to relieve another kind of reluctant escape from the dull boredom that lies deep inside you. You have to admit it, you can hardly walk alone, sit alone under a tree, watch the calm water alone, quietly watch the birds fly, feel the scent of flowers and the breeze, observe the thoughts running through your mind. Like that is how to truly enjoy being alone. Because you and I, we all are not educated to know how to live alone. We are afraid to face it. When alone, as psychologist Kang once said, people will do anything, even the most unreasonable things, to avoid facing their own souls. An inner self that fights against emptiness and loneliness will always find a way to avoid ourselves by any means. And unfortunately, our civilization has become the perfect sophisticated means for each person to escape from his own soul and hide himself in the pleasures of consumption, desire to find someone to love, passion to travel from place to place, or throw oneself into work. Others go to temple to worship all these natural and normal things of life. When it becomes a tool for the distracted mind, life is like banana leaves floating in the water without direction or meaning, rotting in the flow of the very same water. Only when you stop and dare to look deeply into the emptiness, loneliness, fear, pain, fatigue, anxiety, and insecurity within yourself. Only then will you begin to truly live. You need silence, you need space alone to face your heart, to see the way, but the mind only wants you to constantly want to run away, constantly want to be paralyzed, to forget reality. You have to face it to see the many forms of desires, in order to fill the deep hole of the ego with fame, power, wealth. The ability to be alone, or in other words, the ability to enjoy solitude, is the ultimate state of freedom that a person who gathers enough silence can have. It is not the same as loneliness, but it is a state of liberation when you have experienced and understood all your own loneliness in a state of lonely exhaustion. You do not wish to seek joy, satisfaction, nor do you have to rely on anyone psychologically. You absolute freedom, and this freedom, when you have it, you will gently step through all the suffering in life. Try to start spending more time sitting quietly with yourself, understand and accept the chaos in your mind. It is too busy, too calculating, and such a mind can have no room for creative peace. Clean your mind every day so that it is always fresh, so that when you step out into the world, only by looking at the world out there, you can perceive and understand your own reactions, attitudes, and thoughts, and learn more. It is in this perception that you understand the world and life. Judgment is no longer there, it is just pure perception. But insight becomes deeper, sensitive to the joy, beauty as well as the suffering of the world. How should we live and love in the end? First, we talk about normal discipline. When you want to have more money, have a more prosperous life, have more material freedom, achieve a higher position, have better health, then these ambitious desires will become a means to discipline a person into his own discipline. Teach early, never stop learning, whether knowledge, skills, follow ethical rules, work rules, eating rules, keep healthy van. These are all necessary disciplines that almost everyone says if you want to be successful, live responsibly, or overcome difficulties, you must have them. But the author also added that the problem lies in when there is more than one desire, the conflict between what you want and what you think you should do. There is an internal struggle that occurs, and so there is conflict. To overcome the conflict, you think you need to discipline. If you want to eat lots of delicious food but also want to be slim and healthy, you will need discipline. If you have a habit of smoking, but you don't want to ruin your health with the habit, you try to discipline yourself in every way to quit smoking. You want to rest in the evening, but on the other hand, you want to go further in your career. You also need discipline to overcome laziness and not to stray from important goals. And so on. But discipline is only a superficial measure to control the inner conflict. It does not really address the root of the problem. When you impose discipline to regulate or restrain the desires, suppressing your inner feelings and desires without really understanding them, can create a state of prolonged tension, and eventually the suppressed desires will rise up stronger than you. You will be tired of living in torment, of despair, being destroyed, and destroying others. So, first, you have to free yourself from inner contradictions. You will automatically have unity between life and action without the need for coercive discipline. You must deeply understand yourself. You must be clearly aware of your needs, desire, the real motivation behind every action. Understand the nature of life. You will overcome the conflict in your mind. Your thoughts and actions will become harmonious, unified, and clear. You no longer need mechanical discipline to live a meaningful life. Next, we talk about work. A fake message is that, love what you do, so education encourages teaching you to aim for success instead of aiming to do what you love. Love what you do. Most don't care what they have to do in the field. Whatever they do, as long as they make a lot of money, it doesn't matter. So, at some point in their career, Mr. Keat was fed up with his career choice, but there were too many constraints that he didn't dare to make a small trade. Whoever gives up his fear tries to live with inner conflicts for the rest of his life. So, from the beginning, when you are young, when you have few teachings, you must consider when you have abundant energy to take on challenges. Try to find what you love, what you want to do. Don't just choose to fit in with society to make it easy to make a living. You need intelligence. You can find what you like. Loving what you do every day requires you to overcome your own fears. When you fear not being able to make a living if you choose to follow your passion, when you fear stereotypes, looks, contempt, or judgment, when you are afraid of making your parents sad when you go against their wishes, when you are afraid of the difficulties and the price you have to pay when following your own wishes, you will never be able to find out. When you are not lucky enough to choose the right career, you love and are passionate about, but do not have enough conditions to change, then change your own perspective and approach, not force yourself to love, but to pay attention and your own dislike, to understand it better. Where does this feeling come from? Why do you feel like this? Is it because of expectations? Comparison? Is it because of some pressure? Right? Free yourself from those things and don't try to separate yourself from your work. Learn to focus on the present moment while working. You will gradually eliminate the feeling of hatred and gradually become love what you do. Because somewhere in the work you do, there will always be a great meaning of that work itself. Next, we talk about love. The author says that most people live in misery, can't find happiness because in their hearts there is no love. The love that the author mentions is true love, unconditional love, not the kind of love born from ego, full of conditional expectations, surrounded by anxiety, jealousy, and fear. Love often begins with conditional love due to human sexual instinct, but to truly love in freedom, go out on the path to happiness, it needs to develop into unconditional love. Loving someone unconditionally, that is no longer expected to be reciprocated in this way or that, not for the benefit of satisfying one's own emotions, desire, no longer judging, or wanting to change the other person, also no longer has control, jealousy, possessing. Many people say that, love like that, is it a saint, but in fact, have attached to the state of unconditional love, an impossible prejudice that is not real. It's impossible for us all to give others that kind of love. Unconditional love, the Master once said, you can give others unconditional love because their hearts are always filled with love and they only need to give without necessarily asking for anything in return. The author also believes that true love is giving with all your heart and soul, your whole self, without asking for anything in return. Holding out a bowl to beg for some love is not easy, but not impossible. And loving children is probably a kind of love, unconditionally, or not. You love your child, give your child the best, try to strive for your child's future. When your child encounters difficulties, you probably say that it makes you can't live. When your child is sick, you are very scared. Because when this, you are extremely worried, tired when having to stay up late to take care of them. It is the care and concern for your own pain and suffering, not for the pain your child has to go through. This kind of love is often associated with ownership and expectation. You want your child to be happy, successful, healthy, not only for their sake, but also because you see them as a part of your life, an extension of yourself. You are afraid of losing them because in your subconscious mind has tied your happiness to your child's presence and success. That is not unconditional love. Unconditional love should not be based on expectations or pressures that you put on yourself, you put on your children, but understand and accept your children as they are with all the difficulties and flaws they may encounter. Only when you love without demanding, without expecting, and without seeing your children as tools to achieve comfort and pride for yourself, is to truly experience unconditional love, a love that is free from the constraints of ego, a love that brings liberation to both you and your child. Unconditional love is a very long journey. It has nothing to do with who the other person is, whether it is your spouse, children, parents, neighbors, co-workers, strangers, nature, trees, animals, etc. It has to do with who the other person is, regarding your own inner growth journey. A rich and fulfilled inner self will always become a fertile ground, always willing to nurture all seeds of love, wisdom, and creativity. Without there is always a distinction. We have talked about how to live, how to love. Finally, we need to understand death is also to understand the process of life. Why death becomes a fear. The greatest thing in life is why everyone is afraid and avoids talking about death. It is obvious, certain, and extremely unexpected. But it has become a prison in the mind of anyone who thinks about it because we were never taught about death. We were only taught that death is all about returning to the sand. So, not many people can die peacefully and smile solemnly. The last important thing, the last step of life is to understand and feel deeply about death, but we don't have to wait until the end of life to do this. We have to live with death every minute and every second, from a young age, so that each person does not waste his life in conflict, quarrels, suffering, not clinging to small pleasures, and immersed in work in the endless pursuit of success and fame. And so that when death actually comes, we are not afraid, fear not, despair not, loneliness, no regret, and no fight against it. As long as we are ready, is enough. We need to let go of all attachments, possessing the ego, right from when we are still young. Living in detachment here means being aware of the impermanence of everything without clinging to it. Instead of seeing death as something separate, strange, and scary, we should see it as a part of the natural flow of life. Death is not a tragic end but a transition from one state of existence to another, but never expect a soul revelation, rebirth, and immortality, because this is still another form of attachment that the mind creates. You have to let go completely, and finally, letting the past die is also a way you have understood death. You know, only living consciously in the present moment is the way to live fully without regrets and fear when death knocks on the door. In conclusion, the real journey of each of us when coming to this life does not lie in completing predetermined roles, is not to fit into a society that is too clumsy, but to experience life in its diversity and complexity, but also as an opportunity for us to discover ourselves deeply. Understanding and Finding Your True Nature is a very profound book and not easy to approach because the author's ideas break the psychological patterns that most of us have been attached to since childhood. You may be confused or even resistant when reading it, only to find that in the end, the book will not have any ready-made answers or specific ideological system for you to follow, but if you can accept it openly, opening up will lead you to a profound transformation, realizing that everything is already within you, and only you, not anyone else, can help you live a meaningful life that is harmonious, complete, and free. Thank you for listening to the end of today's video. I would like to end it here. If you find this video useful, please leave a comment below. And don't forget to give me a like button. And if you haven't already, subscribe to our channel for more insightful content like this. Goodbye and see you guys in the next videos.